everybody. Welcome to Transatlantic Watch Party. It is a TikTok live / podcast where I, myself, Cara, and my friend Dan here, I'm in the United Kingdom, Dan is in Canada. We watch TV shows separately and then get together to chat about them. And as we are on our mid-season hiatus from 911, which is ridiculously long, we are watching Pan Am. And today we will be discussing number 9, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. And my God, did a lot happen in this episode.
Yeah, I noticed that they continue to kind of cram a lot of events into these episodes, and they've also, I think they've abandoned the whole flashback thing that didn't really happen again in this episode. So it's like the second in a row where they didn't bother with that thing.
Yeah. They don't use it all the time. Yeah. I just like it when they do. It works really well.
Yeah, a lot happened here.
This was, I wrote down at the end, every single character had their own story.
Yeah, and some of them had they were like Dean and Collette are obviously together, and they were spending the day together, and they had their own thing, but they all still had their own personal issues with what happened in that scene, right? So it was good overall. It was great episode. We start with the CIA knocking on Kate's door they've got another mission for her, and she's like, no way, not after you maybe betray my love and whatever happened to him, he got shipped back to Yugoslavia. She's like, no, I don't want to do the spying anymore. Right?
Well, she actually says we had our exit interview. She is out.
Did they do that?
Yeah, that's what she said it.
Okay.
And then she was like, I'm out. And he went, there's 2 ways of getting out. You know, there's different ways of getting out. You either continue to help us sometimes, or, you know, we cost you your job and your identity and everything. And I was like, why you... Sorry?
He gets bridgeted if that's the case, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I was like, Kate, you should just don't get involved with spies, man.
Well, she's in now. She can't get out. And they manipulate her. This guy is basically, he's such a jerk. He'll do anything it takes to get her to go. And it's like she's got to take a little cigarette package, a little cigarette container full of it's got a list of names, right? Is this what's happening?
Yep.
And she's got to give this list.
Fake names, because someone has a list of actual CIA people, what do they call them? Assets.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to sell it to the Russians. And so they've given her a fake list that she needs to get to David Harbour with an English accent, and we will discuss his accent later because hilarious things were happening there. And so she needs to take him the fake list so that he can swap the lists out, and the Russians can get sold a fake list.
Yeah, and not only do they try to take to basically ground her and to take her job away, but they also tell her that her love, Nico, is on the top of the list of the real list. They
don't do that until later, because she's right? When she gets the list to Anderson, she's like, right, that's it, I'm done now. And he's like, well, actually, and I'm like, how about just let her? Oh my God. So that was the first thing. And then we saw, then we went to Maggie's apartment. Yeah. And I realized that, Sam doesn't live there. He just is there sometimes. So, Sam arrives. They're both in their girdles, and Sam arrives, and he wants to go to London for the ban the bomb, protest in London. And he said something interesting. He said, "Come on, Maggie, you owe me." And I wrote, "Oh," but we never learned anything about that.
No, and it sounds like he did ask her about this before and she forgot, or maybe she promised him and never intended to deliver on it. But she's like, I don't know. I mean, I kind of wanted to see how she would sneak him on the plane, right? Like, how did she get him?
He had a ticket.
Oh, did he? Oh,
he wanted her to sneak him into first class.
Oh, okay.
But so I think he had a ticket. He did. That wasn't made clear, so I'm making assumptions.
Yeah.
But this was an episode about whether Maggie was going to have principles or live by her principles, because Sam is a principled guy and is noisy about it.
Mm-hmm. As we went later on. he gets into it on the plane.
It was a very interesting Maggie episode.
And then we have Dean picking up Collette outside of her apartment, I assume. And he's not dressed for work. She is. She's ready to go. She's like, we're going to London in 2 hours. Why, we get personal valet service now. And he's got his jean jacket on and he's ready for like a day off.
He is in triple denim.
That's what we refer to out here as a Canadian tuxedo, by the way.
Oh my God.
It's weird that he's wearing it in this show, but that is like a phrase. A Canadian tuxedo is a full-on denim on denim.
Oh my God, I'm in love with that. That's so brilliant. Yeah, so he's in a denim jacket, denim shirt, denim jeans. Yeah, love it.
And he asked her, and I didn't understand what he was getting at first, because I'm like, she's like, we have to go to London in 2 hours. Like, you want to learn how to fly? And I'm like, don't have time to do this. There's no way they're going to go off and learn how to fly in the 2 hours before they have to leave for Paris or for London. So I didn't understand what was going on, but I guess they both called in sick. Is that what happened? Because we only really heard about him calling in sick.
No, because Laura said, Ted said about Dean calling in sick, and then Laura said something must be going round because Colette's also sick.
Oh, okay. I missed that one. Okay.
So, yeah. I don't know whether they twigged. I can't remember if they all went, nudge, nudge, wink, wink,
I'm sure they were thinking it, right?
Yeah, but yes, they were going to play hooky, which later on she described as, what did she say? I can't believe we're hooking. Oh my God, my sister's joined the live. Hello, Bex.
Hello, Bex.
Sister. This is very exciting. She's never here.
Now we have in this episode, that guy, which is Captain Thornton, who was Dean's replacement. Since Dean called in sick, we have a new captain flying the plane, and it's Captain Thornton. And for me, did you recognize him for anything at all?
I immediately IMDb'd him because I was like, I know him from everything. And it turned out I was looking through and I couldn't figure out where I knew him from. And then eventually I got to Philadelphia.
Okay, yeah.
And I really knew him from Philadelphia.
He's like Tom Hanks' brother, isn't he, in that or something like that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know him from The Abyss, which is a James Cameron film. It's the underwater movie. And I just remember him being, I don't remember his name, but he's the big tall guy. And I remember Ed Harris going, whoa, I don't remember putting a wall here. And it's like him because he's this big tall guy and Ed Harris runs into him. But yeah, he was immediately that guy of this episode. But he is a sexist kind of asshole all he does is care about himself and tell war stories and smack the stewardesses' asses and he really is creepy when he like gets her to bend over to clean up part of his whatever, something's fogging up. You clean it up so you can get a look down her shirt. Like that is really going there.
One of the things I did want to say is Maggie got in a nice dig at Ted about not being the captain. Mm-hmm. When he was like, he was giving her instructions and she was like, aye, captain. And then she was like, oh no, I'm sorry. So I was like, Maggie, you're terrible. But yeah, so the first thing so Maggie's like, keep away from the captain, she says to Laura, because he's very handsy and he's an asshole and be careful. And the first thing that we see is that his interaction with one of the stewardesses is she's not wearing her hat.
Right, it's Laura. Yep.
And yeah, Laura's not wearing her hat, and he lays into her, and she says, "Well, my hat pin broke," and it was this is one of my pet peeves. You ready? He said, "I don't care about your excuses." That's not an excuse. That's a reason. And I need people to learn the difference between those two things.
Okay.
Because I get so annoyed when like you're late for work because your train wasn't on time. And so or your train was cancelled in London. It's a nightmare. And you get into work and someone's like, well, I don't want your excuses. And you're like, I'm not making something. My train wasn't there. I don't know how I was meant to do anything about that. That's a reason that I am late. It's not an excuse.
Is the difference that reasons are real and excuses are made up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, you're trying to sort of wheel your way out of trouble, so you give an excuse. You sort of fudge your way around the truth. But a reason is I'm not wearing my hat because I physically can't because the pin broke.
Right.
That's a reason.
Yeah, but he gets on her about other, like, then she tries to bring him coffee and he's like, it's not time for coffee yet. What are you doing? You don't bring me coffee till I ask for coffee. And then Ted's
Yeah.
like, well, I want a coffee. Ted was like very frustrated. And he said they're being bored to death by World War II stories. That was hilarious.
And what's really interesting is that then when he does ask for coffee, she only brings him coffee. So poor Ted hasn't had a coffee.
Ted doesn't get his coffee though.
But I did write down, so he's an asshole. Great. Is he here to make Ted look good? And kinda.
Yeah, I guess so. Right? Because Ted kind of Ted approaches Laura. Where are we there yet? No, I'm getting ahead of it. Oh yeah, I wrote, and then by the way, this is also when we meet the congressman character as well, who's on the plane. And I mean, Sam's already laying into him. He's going to London for the conference, for the nuclear arms conference or whatever. And Sam's laying into him on the plane, like he's just screaming at him about like, how can you be for this and we need to ban these and all this other stuff. Like he is just going into him, and of course that's going to happen. We kind of figured as soon as they say there's like the congressman on the plane, but he's quite a handsome young congressman. Sorry, go ahead.
Is it Ted that sort of interviews? Because you know the stewardesses are trying to, but Ted comes in as Sam says to him, "You need to get your hands off me, flyboy." I thought that was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and Ted knows him. Ted's like, oh yeah, we met at this party, right? Yes, of course.
Yes, he knows the congressman because that's the kind of circles that Ted moves in. He's a moneyed man, you know.
Absolutely. And so I laughed. I thought that was funny, and I laughed at the war stories of the captain telling the war stories about the Jerry's. He took out a whole convoy Jerry's or whatever he said,
and the frogs on the Jerry's, and how this plane has too many, you know. It's too busy, it's too cluttered. Right. And the plane that he flew during the war was part of his soul. Yeah. And I wonder as well, like, because Ted wouldn't have been, you know, wasn't around for the war, to have those kind of people flying the planes and then you're coming up through the ranks and you haven't flown in a war, you've got kind of no comeback. You know, people are just always going to think they're better than you because they flew in a war.
But also they're your elders. You're supposed to be respectful. He was probably brought up in that these people saved the world, right? These people like sacrificed so much to fight off the Germans, or the Nazis rather. And that like he can't really say anything. He's trapped in this situation. He's got to sit there and listen to his stories.
He is, as Sam points out to Maggie later, trapped at 35,000 feet. Right. He is, you know.
And the only thing that's going to shut him up is Laura spilling coffee on him, which is what happens later on with coffee. So, and that was on purpose. She did it on purpose.
Laura's my hero. She's crazy. She says that to it, doesn't she? Maggie's like, "You're my hero," and I'm like, "Oh my god, you're Maggie's hero. Run! You've gone too far." Yeah. So then, yes, we go back to Dean and Collette. Is that the next bit? Yeah. And she finds out. Oh my god. She finds out that he's going to introduce her to his parents.
Yeah. That's a little too soon. They'd had one kiss. Yeah. And it's very, very odd.
That's probably why he doesn't think it's a big deal. But also, don't do that. Let me tell you a small story about my boyfriend at university. He turned 21. I was with him when he turned 21. And his parents came over to our university town to take him out for lunch, and I was also invited. That's very nice of them. And we've been together for a while, you know. And then we turned up at this very lovely, like, country hotel with a restaurant, and we walked into this room off on the side, and his entire family was there. His siblings, his grandparents, everybody was there. And no one had told me. And this was my first time even meeting his parents. Wow. And he said, like, they filmed it, you know, so you see us, like, walking in the room and him going, "Oh my god." And he said, I go just completely white. And I was just like, you could have warned me.
Yeah, like, yeah. They must have been afraid you were going to tell him.
Yes. Yeah, and I was like, that's just so disrespectful. And then they didn't even let me sit next to him.
Oh, no.
So I was just like sitting somewhere else, you know. I mean, I was sitting sitting with his sister and his granddad, and they were both absolutely lovely. But yeah, it felt a bit like they just they didn't want me to.
Now, in a way, I can kind of see where Dean's coming from because I think a lot of times the whole meeting the parents thing is overblown and it doesn't need to be that big of a deal. And you can just meet them and say, hi, how's it going? And that's all fine. And that could have been fine. I think actually this would have been an okay visit had they kept it casual or whatever. Like they certainly didn't arrive and say, this is my girlfriend, Collette. It's not like he said that, right? But as soon as they arrive, his dad's like, where's Bridget? Or they say, oh, this must be Bridget, right? That was the first part. They assumed it was Bridget. Now it's like, whoa, wait a minute. Because the last thing they knew, he was about to marry Bridget. He was going to propose to her, and he had told them that. And they haven't heard anything since.
Was 100% on Dean, because why didn't he just tell them he wasn't seeing Bridget anymore? Like, his ego couldn't cope with telling them that she'd left him, so he didn't tell them. And now he's brought Collette, and so they were sort of forced into being a couple when they're not really fully a couple yet, because he sort of had to go, this is my new girl, so, but that moment, when he met his parents, that was my, I know that because it was Ann Dowd, and I love Ann Dowd.
Okay.
His mum. She's in The Handmaid's Tale.
I know that one.
And that's not the thing I love her from. I saw her in a film called Compliance about 10 years ago, and she was brilliant in it. She was absolutely brilliant in it. And ever since then, she's a tremendous actress. So I
haven't. Hold on. I'm looking at it right now. By the way, I found a place. That's the Hayloft. No, that's different. I found a place to watch this for free. It's called the Internet Archive, which is like this huge archive of all kinds of different internet things. But they have like all the episodes of Pan Am on here, for people to watch. So,
well, I'm watching it on ITVX, which is a sort of catch-up service for one of our channels, which over here in the UK, and you don't have to pay. And you get adverts, but my parents happen to pay for it, so I'm watching it. Oh, this is the bit where Laura drops the coffee on the asshole, which is always, that sounds terrible. A guy who is an asshole.
Not directly. Spells on a shirt.
Yes, so, yes, because he's like, oh, can you come and wipe this thing because it's all foggy, and so she has to lean over him, and he's looking down her shirt. It's like, it's not even like she's wearing anything that's particularly booby. Like her cleavage isn't out. He's like trying to look into the slit of. It's so gross.
Yeah.
And he's patted her on the bum before, so not a good guy. And so she like spills hot coffee on him on purpose, and Ted's like, "Hey, brilliant." Yes, and then that's when Maggie says, "You're my hero." And so then we get, when they land in London, he says, oh, the base manager, that's what they're called base managers. The base, the base manager is going to hear about this and you're going to get in trouble and blah, blah, blah. And then Ted sort of says, can we talk? And he's like, not now. And he's like, no, we have to talk about this now. And Laura says, what's Ted doing? And Maggie says, probably making it worse.
I mean, it's probably not wrong, but Ted makes it better. He makes it go away. He talks to her for a few minutes, and then the guy just kind of walks away and just doesn't say anything further, and that's it. And Ted doesn't tell her what he says. He's like, "Oh, it's okay. It's all good now." So, but we find out later what he says.
Yes, we do. So that, and then I think we went over. Then we went over to Kate handing over this cigarette case to Anderson. Now, Anderson, as we know, but for those of you who haven't seen the show, Anderson is David Harbour of Stranger Things and Black Widow fame and many other things. And he's doing an English accent, and Dan finds that very confusing.
Since his accent shifts around a bit, he tries to be from a different part of England, I think, in this show. He's a cover. He's doing undercover work. And trying to I don't know.
For absolutely no reason. Because he could just be there in London. He's doing a London accent. He's doing what we call RP, received pronunciation, just a bog standard, London Southern accent. And I don't know why he has to make up a different character. Because when he's like, oh, we need to go and meet this guy, she's still being a Pan Am stewardess. So
Right.
why does he suddenly go, I have to make up this whole guy? And I wrote down, what accent is that meant to
That's
be?
what I wrote down. I said, what accent is David Harbour trying to do? Question mark.
And then he said that he was playing a guy from Liverpool, and I paused it
I know what that's.
and we shouted at the telly for 20 minutes. Because that man, neither that man nor anyone who worked on that show, nor anyone who was involved in that show has ever been anywhere near Liverpool.
But it's
He's right, I'm from Liverpool and I'm here seeing my mates. And I went,
well, it sounded like he was trying to go a bit Cockney at first. That's what I thought he was trying to do. And I'm like, no, that's not Cockney. That's not. And it's like a little Michael Caine. I thought like kind of whatever his is. He's got a bit of a working class accent. And I mean, they should have just let him do his normal American accent. He could have been an American, right? That would have been better. That would have sounded more impressive if he goes all of a sudden for a British to an American accent. That would have been like, oh, okay. I don't know why they didn't do
that. Think of that, but yes, they should have done that. But Scouse is very up, and it's, you know, like.
Oh, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Like, so what? Who are you being?
Yeah. Yep.
Sorry. Yeah. So there was a lot of screaming in my house when that happened. And also, can I just point out that as soon as we saw him in the jewelry shop, he was not doing that accent. He was just doing his normal accent.
Yeah, I think so.
There were 2 lines of him speaking in, I'm going to put it in big air quotes here, Liverpudlian. And then he got to the shop and he didn't even do it. It was the most, like, it was just humiliating for him and everyone involved.
Yeah, he must have got that direction from the director, I guess, of the show, whoever's directing that episode thing. Let's try something different. Let's try different. What else do you have in your repertoire, David? Oh, I could do Liverpool. I bet I could do Liverpool. I haven't listened to the Beatles. I know Liverpool. So he's like,
yeah, I suppose the Beatles were but the Beatles were, their accents were interesting. So, you know, maybe he was going for that, but he was still miles off. I mean, it was just so awful. And then when we moved away from them, because that is when he tells Kate, he tells her that Bridget is on the list, which surprises me because she's not a CIA asset.
She's not active anymore.
She's not active. She was, you know, like, so that sort of surprised me. And then he was like, oh, and a certain boyfriend, you know, like guy that, you know, whatever he said about him. And she was like, Nico's on the list. And I was like, why did you not assume that Nico was on the list?
Right. This is a list of all the people.
Yeah. So then we go back to Collette and Dean.
Right.
And they're pulling up, and it's so funny because they've been at like a little farmer's market or something. And now they're arriving at Dean's parents. And he says, are you ready? She's like fixing her fringe in the rearview mirror. And she says, nobody looks good after 100 miles in a convertible. And she says that whilst looking absolutely flawless.
Yeah, he does.
You know, my crush on Collette did not get any smaller during this episode, let me tell you.
Yeah, she looks good. And this is when he drops it on her that they're meeting his parents. Was it just as they pull up to the thing?
No, she knew about it at the farmer's market. You know, he says, "Oh, we're going to go and have lunch," because the crop duster, which is the plane he's going to teach her in,
right,
is in the barn behind his parents' house. And so she's like, "What do you mean we have to go to your parents' house?" You know, he's not even thought about it.
Yeah, and that's where this was to be Bridget. And I also noticed when we get to the scene with the table, when they're sitting at the table and they're kind of talking about Collette and how like she speaks 4 languages and she's this and this. It did very much seem like this is my new girlfriend kind of a conversation. Like that's kind of the kind of things you talk about when you're introducing somebody to your parents. It did feel like that a bit. But then the dad was all worked up about the
dad was awful, but again, Dean could have just told them.
Yeah, for sure. Like I kind of get where the dad coming from. Like it sucks, and as I'm about to get into this life phase as my kids get older and move out, they're not going to talk to me. I know they're not going to talk to me much when they're in their 20s, and that's okay because I didn't talk to my parents much when I was in my 20s. And that's what Dean's doing. Dean's out living his life. He's not talking to his parents much, and his dad's upset about it. But we skipped a part. Sorry, we should get back to Ted wants Laura to pretend to be his girlfriend at his he's being set up with some old daughter of somebody. His mom's trying to set them up or something like that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know whether they're trying to set them up. They just want, like, it's an old family friend, and he should meet her. You know, it's the polite thing to do if you're both in the city.
Divorce in London.
He says she was like Grace Kelly made of ice.
Okay.
You know, he was crushing on her so hard when he was younger, and she wouldn't give him the time of day. Yeah. And so he thinks that this meeting, you know, they're meant to be going out for dinner or whatever. He thinks it's going to be just a disaster. And he wants to sort of say to her, look, I got a hot girl, even though he hasn't got a hot girl. And so he asks Maggie. Oh, yeah, because when she's like, oh, thanks for doing that thing with the captain, I owe you. And he goes, good, I'm going to collect right now.
Yeah, and that was so creepy the way he said that.
Yeah, and then he said, so I want you to come over, interrupt us, yell at me, like, you know, like I'm standing you up or something. And by the way, could you wear that very specific black dress? And she was like, hey, just because I'm doing a favor for you doesn't mean you can tell me what to wear. And also, I was like, how does he know she brought that black dress?
Fair enough, right? Yeah. He's not even thinking of that, really.
Does she always bring the same, like, 4 items of clothing, you know? Which she could do.
Maybe she only owns a couple of dresses, right? She probably doesn't have very many.
It seemed weird.
Yeah.
So they make that agreement.
Which is still very strange. I think that's asking a lot from her. Like, and especially after they've had that kind of awkward, like, they showed it in the recap, right? They showed the recap where he tried to kiss her and hold her hand and stuff like that. So they've had this awkwardness behind them. So I thought it was a big ask on his part, and I wasn't, like, fully on board with that. I'm like, that's not fair to her, right? To make it that.
Since the awkward kiss thing, they've had the sort of moment of bonding over watching the rocket launch. Badly, but he did successfully get the engagement ring back.
Right.
And he got them out of jail.
Yeah, and he helped her in this episode too.
Yeah, right. In Rio. So he has stepped up for her, you know. Let's not get mistaken here. I am not sticking up for Ted. I am not saying Ted is good. I'm not saying I like Ted. But I think there have been opportunities for Laura to warm to him since he went in for the kiss.
That's true.
Yeah. So yes, and then we is the next scene the scene where we meet Dean's parents?
Yeah. They're sitting down for dinner, and that's when they have the fight about who. Like, he's like, can we talk about the elephant in the room? Where's Bridget? What happened to Bridget? And like, last we heard, you were about to propose to this woman, and now we have this other person here. What's going on? Right? And again, I totally get that. He's a jerk about it, but I get why he's upset.
Yes, and that's exactly it. Like, that is a completely reasonable question for him to ask, but there is a time and a place. And when Collette, a completely neutral party, is sitting there at that table just trying to be polite, that is not. And then he turns around to her and asks her if she's pregnant. Like, he says, did he knock you up? Yeah. Collette leaves. Quite rightly.
Yeah, and then we cut right to the barn. They're out in the barn, or she goes out to the barn. Dean follows her out there.
Yes,
and then they have the argument.
They have their argument, and then they are obviously going to have their makeup sex. And all I could think about was straw. It's so hard and scratchy.
But have you not heard the term having a roll in the hay? Isn't that like a phrase of it?
And I still think, ow.
Yeah, I just wrote down roll in the hay. Because that's what they're doing.
Literally having a roll in the hay, you know.
Yeah. But yeah, I was kind of, Dean in that moment, Dean's like, I'm sorry, screwed up. And he really, I think, realizes that he did not think of anybody else in the situation. I do think he was intentionally just hoping to show up there, have dinner, and show how to fly the plane, and that's it, and have a nice day with Collette. But he did not think about his parents' feelings. He did not think about Colette's feelings. Basically, didn't think about anybody else in that situation except for himself. And so that's kind of the lesson he learns here, is that he has to like realize there's more going on around him than just him.
Just because it's not a big deal to him doesn't mean it's not a big deal to anybody else.
Exactly. Yeah, that's right. And so, and it's very clearly a big deal to Collette. She's very upset about this. And so he's got to talk her down. But I wouldn't have forgiven him that quickly. I gotta say, that was really, she came on real quick on that.
Yeah, she gave it up easy.
Right. But now, oh wait, how long was this scene? Oh, it was quite a long scene. Oh yeah, and then we have Kate and David Harbour. What's his real name? What's his name in the show? By the way? Anderson. Okay, they're off pretending to be a couple to buy the bracelet. They're looking at a diamond bracelet, and this is the guy who has the list that they're going to switch.
Yes, and the list is in his safe. So what they're trying to do is get him out of the shop so that so that Anderson can break in and get the list and do a little swapsy with it. And so they're in the shop pretending to buy a diamond bracelet, and it needs sizing, so he's going to come to the hotel, and David Harbour isn't doing his Liverpudlian accent, so I don't see the point of any of it. And yes, so and she kisses him.
She kisses him with his soul. He looks at her like, well, that's kind of nice, actually.
Yeah.
Like it feels like
when it's happening, he's like, which doesn't give it away at all.
No, but that was pretty funny. Yeah. So he's gonna he's gonna resize it and bring it for her. While he's at the hotel, David Harbour is gonna go and break in and steal the thing.
Yeah.
And then so then that obviously goes bad. And then we have Ted and Laura meeting up in the lobby of the hotel to pull off their little scam.
She wore the dress.
She wore the black dress. Yeah.
Yep. And she also says to him, "You're not just a pilot. You're a decent man." And I was like, so yeah, she's definitely warmed to Ted now.
Yeah.
And she's just been in a situation with the other captain. So like I say, he was put there to make Ted look really good.
That's right. Yeah. And if it wasn't for the other captain, then Ted wouldn't have had that final kind of moment of helping her out. To really solidify him. Now, we talk about the Sam conversation? Because there was a point at which we got next.
Yes. No, we didn't.
Maggie talks to Sam. Sam didn't go. Everyone, all the ban the bomb people got arrested. And he's upset because he didn't get arrested with them. He's like, I should have been there. I should have been with them. And she's like, what is the point of any of this, right? And I don't disagree with her. I'm like, I understand the right to protest and all that, but getting yourself arrested is not going to help anything. And so he gives her a nice talk and says, what do you do with your position, right? You travel the world, you meet important people all the time on your plane. You never say anything to them. You never, influence them or do anything. And so now she's decided to talk to this congressman and try and convince him to not promote nuclear testing or whatever, right? So that was kind of interesting.
Yes. So we do see her. Oh no, that's later. No, this is so we see her approaching. She's obviously had a bit to drink.
Oh yeah.
And she's approaching the congressman, and she's like, "Have you ever thought that maybe we shouldn't kill everyone on the planet?"
Well, she's like, and to be fair, he's like listening to him. Even on the plane, when Sam was yelling at him, this guy seems like a reasonable guy. He's like, I'm happy to listen to anybody who wants to say it. And he's like, I've got my position. And then so she's like trying to convince him to change his mind on nuclear arms. And he's like, well, you got to the top of you got 3 flights of stairs.
Yeah, you've got 3 flights of stairs to convince me.
Yeah. So basically they start walking up the stairs and she starts talking to him. And then they get all the way up to the top and they walk right into the room, and she throws her purse down on the bed like it's her room, like no big deal, and just keeps talking.
Yeah. And he says, and he's poured her a drink, and I'm just like, "Dad, what do you know?" And then I can't remember what led to this line, but he said, "You've made it this far, and I haven't called security." And I was like, "Yeah, because she looks like that.
That's right. And she's a Pan Am stewardess, and
Yeah, because
probably
she's
got
bloody
acting
Christina
about
Ricci, and you're hoping to get her into bed. Like, she's never going to change your mind. That's why he's fine with Sam shouting at him, because he gets to, like, just come out of it looking cool, calm, and collected, because he doesn't have to respond to him, and he doesn't have to change his position. You know, it affects him in no way whatsoever. And neither does Maggie, except she's hot, and he's charming.
Mhm.
And if he gives her the idea that she might change his mind, he might successfully get her into bed.
That's
Like-
right. And that's exactly what happens. Right.
Yeah, Maggie fell for that hook, line, and sinker. Yeah. Oh, and then I think, is that when we go back and we see that Dean did actually at least lay down a blanket in the hay?
Oh, did he? Okay, I didn't see that part. I didn't catch that, but yeah. I mean, you gotta have something, right? Yeah.
They were like half on it, half off it. But yeah.
Right. That's hilarious. So, sorry, go ahead.
And but to be honest, I can't even remember what they would, if they even spoke much about what they were. He was saying in Haiti, you were right. We should have rescued that girl. I would have hated myself for it if we hadn't. So he was like winning her over again.
Mm-hmm. And then we cut to Ted, who's meeting his date, who it turns out is rather attractive, and he's like, "Oh, she seems nice," and they're getting on. They're like hitting it off. So I'm like, well, when is this? Like, I was waiting for the moment when Laura's gonna walk up, because he wanted her to like throw a drink in his face and snack. What are you doing with this girl? And be all jealous. And I'm like, this is gonna be so awkward because they're clearly having a good time. But then Laura's over.
She was going to be hot. We just thought she was going to be mean. And then she was all like, oh, Ted. You know? So it was like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah, exactly. And so he's like having a good time. And then so Laura's over at the bar waiting for her cue. But just before she's able to go over there, Captain Thornton stops her to talk to her, right?
And he tells her that she is lucky to have a guy like Ted, because he hasn't heard many guys talk about their girl that way, because he said she was smart and she was, you know, like all these wonderful things, and that the captain shouldn't get her in trouble because she's brilliant at her job and she's blah, blah, blah. And so she's lucky to have, so she's like, Ted said all that stuff about me. And I'm like, yeah, but he didn't have to mean it. Like, he's getting you out of trouble. I'm not saying he didn't mean it.
Yeah.
But she takes everything she's very naive. Not a cynical bone in that girl's body. And so she takes all of that to heart, like, oh, he meant every word that he said and he was being genuine. And he was just trying to get her out of trouble, which is nice. And also call in a favour from her. How is this captain not seeing that Ted is on a different date?
You tell he's like 5 feet away at a tail.
But then when they turn around, he's gone.
Yes.
So I was like, okay, fair enough.
And but the implication, like, I'm not sure did Ted just speak to the captain in a way that he assumed she was his girl, or did Ted actually say to him, hey, that's my girl? Or do you think it was just like the way he was speaking, the guy automatically assumed that she was? You think it's the second one? Yeah, because he was like,
I think it's the second one.
Okay, because I would take offense to them, like to him saying that I'm like, we're not together. He's tried to kiss me once and failed at it. Like, there's nothing about us being a couple. Like, I thought that she would be upset about that, but she doesn't. She's like, oh my god, I think I love Ted. I think that's what she was coming at. That's what she was getting at, is that like he's a great guy, and but then of course we had the fire alarm. So after Maggie and the congressman hook up.
Well, we know we have to get to why there is a fire alarm.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah,
brilliant.
Yeah. So Maggie finds this speech. He's going to be giving it this. I wish she had read it. I really wish she had read it. I wanted to know what he had to say. Because he was reading it.
Yeah. But I mean, she said, this is basically fascism.
Yeah.
And he said, Mussolini was a childhood hero. And I was like, oh, Maggie, you've absolutely been taken for a ride.
Yeah.
I hope it was a good ride. You know, I hope you got something out of it. But she's been completely taken for a ride by this guy. And then she steals the speech, goes into the sets fire to it in the bathroom, chucks it in the bin, and sets the net curtains on fire. Oh my God, it was so brilliant.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Of course, that interrupts Kate, who's getting the delivery of the bracelet. Like she's the guys come to deliver the bracelet, and then she's made an excuse because David Harbour's not there. She's like, oh, he's running late. But let's like try it on and stuff like that. So the guy's a little like hesitant. He's like, oh, okay, well, I don't have much time, but hopefully he's not here. He's here soon. And then while they're in the middle of that, the fire alarm goes off, so he wants to get out of there. And she's like trying to get him to stop, and he's like, "Do you not hear the fire alarm going off here? Come on, we got to get out of here." Right? So it's pretty funny.
And she's like, it's probably like a test. Or it's probably a false alarm. And I'm like, it's not a false alarm. Maggie set fire to the hotel.
Yeah. Hey, what's this thing they're doing with the lighter on the glass? Is that something you do with brandy when you light it?
As a teetotal person, I have no idea.
I'm not a big alcohol person either, so I don't know. I always thought that was
I
weird.
think that it must be because Maggie sort of gives the impression she's a well-travelled, well-drunk woman. You know, so it sort of strikes me as if the French do something with their cognac, she'd know about it.
Right. And then he corrects it. He like corrects what she's doing and does it for her kind of thing, I guess. I don't know. That was interesting. Anyway.
Yeah, but she could also have been like faking that she didn't know how to do it properly so that he'd like, you know.
Yeah, that's right.
But yeah, and she's like running down the stairs in like just her bra and her jeans, you know. Absolutely brilliant. So then, of course, we get the a cliffhanger ending.
That's the first time this has happened in the series. Yes. So she has to chase after him because she realizes the guy's going to go back and he's going to come across Anderson going through the safe or something like that. She hasn't stalled him for long enough, basically. So she's worried. Although I would have thought it would have been long enough. Like even just him, if he's waiting there, as soon as he leaves the shop, he's going to be able to get in pretty quickly, I would assume, and get the thing.
I'm just going to go right now. I'm just going to go with Anderson isn't very good at his job. He can't have Liverpudlian accent and he can't crack a safe quickly enough. So, you know.
Sure, I'm sure you're right about that. So then so she runs off to follow him and she finds, now is he fighting Anderson? Is that who the guy's, okay, they're in the middle of a fight. So obviously this guy came across him doing it and then they're you know, and he's basically he gets a knife out, he's about to stab him, he rears back like this, and then we shoot.
Yeah, because who pulls the gun in the first place?
Well, the gun, I don't know who pulls the gun, but
I don't know whose gun it was, you know, but it ends up like in front of, she's sort of come halfway up the stairs, and the gun falls like right in her hand's reach, you know. And so when Anderson ends up on the floor and the other guy like pulls out his switchblade, like clank, you know, gets his knife out, we see her fire the gun. Blackout, end of episode.
Black. That's right. So now I have to wait till next week to find out what happened.
Yeah. But I was like,
right.
I mean, that episode was just jam-packed.
I wrote, wow, Kate's a spy, and she's officially a spy now. Even if she doesn't kill the guy, like as soon as you shoot somebody, you're in the game. Like she's not gonna be able to turn away now. And so as she's obviously saved Anderson from the guy, and they'll keep the list from getting to the Russians, right? Because this guy's dead now. So
I assume that he is dead. I assume she didn't hit Anderson. Yeah, I don't know whether she's ever fired a gun before.
Right, exactly.
But the other thing that happened was, and I don't know if I've said this to you before, because I think it every single week on the show, whenever they open that cupboard on the plane with all the Pan Am stewardess bags in them, I'm always like, how do you know which bag is yours? Because they've all got the same bag. So, you know, I wonder if
they have heads on them, no?
Yeah, they put them in different orders, you know, like my bag's always on the left, you know. But when Kate, like she gets the thing out, the cigarette case out to look at the list, which is written in code. And I don't know why she insists on doing that in a place where anyone could see. We see Laura walking towards her. And I think in almost every episode, we have had a situation where Laura has been very close to, if she just asked what was going on. You know, there was the thing with the camera. she was involved in. When she took, was his name Joe? You know, the black guy that she was with that one episode.
And she had to go rushing off.
When they turned up to Kate's house, she was rushing off to see Nico, so that she was right in the middle of spy stuff. And, you know, and whenever she's like holding something, Laura's like one step away from going, "Oh, what have you got?"
Right. You know, eventually it's going to happen. She's going to catch her at some point, and get pulled in probably.
Yeah. And Laura, dear, sweet, naive Laura, is going to find out that her sister is a spy.
And by the way, one thing we forgot to mention is that during the fire alarm, Ted and his date are leaving, and they're just, you know, they're all, I think they were like getting it on before the fire alarm went off, and they were interrupted and they had to go. So, but yeah, that Ted doesn't leave.
Laura.
Yeah.
Laura comes across them, so she knows that's happened.
Yeah, and she's upset about it.
Yeah. Poor Laura. You know, you asked me, like in the second episode, whether her hair had got lighter. And I think it did between the first episode and the second, because when I watch it, it comes up with the promo shot that must have been done before the series came out. And her hair is definitely darker there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think Laura got more blonde.
I do think they made a decision after the pilot to differentiate the sisters a bit, because they did look kind of, I mean, they're sisters. They're going to look similar. Like, that is like a given. They should have the same color hair, really. But they didn't. They made a point, probably because they're worried about people confusing the two. But I don't confuse them. I think they're both very different people, good actors as well.
Yeah. And I think I actually, the names I mix up the most are Laura and Maggie, and I don't know why that is, but
I think I've got them all now. I've surprisingly, I've got all the names straight after only 9 episodes. This is not usually what happens.
I'm so proud of you. You've worked.
I still don't know all the names of 911, Cara. Okay, I'm still working on that. No Timmy.
You know who Chimney is, and that is all that matters. He's the most important person, and we all know it. I think you're going to meet a new character. Well, I think you're going to meet an old character that everybody loves. There's like a guy who's on the B shift, but joins the A shift, like,
Okay.
semi-regularly. There are like points where you think he's going to join the team, and then he doesn't join the team. And
Okay.
and so I think we think he's back filming, so I think you're going to meet Ravi. So I'm very excited.
Oh, Auntie's excited about that. Auntie says, "Oh yes."
Yep. Ravi Main, #Ravi Main. We want a Ravi Main. So what else have you been watching?
Have I told you about Sleepy Hollow yet?
Oh, are you watching the series?
Yeah. Have you seen that one?
No, you haven't. Tell me what you think of it. I haven't seen it, but
Well,
fill me in.
I've been watching with my girlfriend, and one of her favorite categories of shows is non-cop helping cop, right? Which is your Castle and your, I mean, sure, there's a bunch of them you could probably think of. The what's the one with James Spader? The Blacklist?
Blacklist.
That's another good one.
And I am currently watching High Potential, and that's another one of those.
Okay. Lucifer is another one too. I know you like Lucifer.
I watched that.
That's another one in that category. In this case, the non-cop is a 200-year-old man who Ichabod Crane. So it's somehow he's slept his way into the future, and it's some kind of witchcraft. They haven't been clear about that yet.
Now.
Yeah, it's like he is somehow he got put to sleep, and then he wakes up 200 years in the future. So he's working with like a local sheriff's department to solve crimes that are caused by the Headless Horseman. And other scary monsters. It's almost like a monster of the week, kind of like Once Upon a Time did, where they like every week there's going to be a different kind of monster that they have to fight off. So it's good.
Like
a lot of
grim,
funny,
or supernatural, or bloody. Yeah, so it's what a great mix of those two genres, like monster of the week and cop procedural. Brilliant.
Yeah. It's really good. Sleepy Hollow. So it's on Disney Plus here. I'm sure you can find it there as well. And then that's a really good one. What about you?
Well, I watched another Harlan Coben with my mom, which is on Netflix, Fool Me Once.
Mm-hmm.
So we've now watched 3 of them. And then we discovered that there's like 6 more on Netflix. But 4 of them are foreign. So I was like, oh, this is great, because this might be my way into discovering, sort of seeing if my mum can put up with subtitles. because I want to open the world of subtitles to my mum because there's so many brilliant things to watch that have subtitles. So I thought, a Harlan Coben might, because she knows the genre, so it won't be she won't have to concentrate on it too much, And Fool Me Once, I was really enjoying it until the final episode. And then I was like, oh, this just got ridiculous. Oh,
Look what happens.
yes.
Oh, no.
I thought it was much better than Missing You, which is the most recent one they've made. Possibly because Missing You was only 5 episodes, so it felt a bit lightweight. And Fool Me Once is 8 episodes. There was so much going on. But yeah, the final episode just ruined it for me. And we watched the first episode of Matlock, the new Kathy Burke series, before Christmas. And then we wanted, because they've had a mid-season break, and we wanted for it to like start up again before we started watching. So we watched episode 2 the other night, and we were both kind of disappointed with it, which was really sad because we loved the first episode. It's got 2 plot lines going. There's the procedural element of it, and then the background story, the sort of overlying season-long story. And the season-long story is brilliant. And the court case this time around was just really disappointing. Like, it just felt really flimsy and like pointless. Not that the people involved, there was a murder. I'm not saying that, like, it was important to the people whose daughter had been killed,
Sure.
But as a TV drama, it was a bit like,
Oh well.
So yeah, and I introduced my mum to High Potential. I say it like that because both I and my mum thought it was called Hypertential.
Oh.
And it's not because I go, oh, do you want to watch High Potential? And we both thought it was, the first time I heard about it, I thought it was that, but it's not. It's High Potential. And so I introduced her to that. I said, this is a great series. And she said the first episode was a bit too manic for her. And I went, I completely understand that. But I think now that you know who all the characters are, your brain will not struggle with it so much. Because the first episode, it has to introduce everyone and how the show works. And because this woman is so smart and she notices all the little details, you get all these little flashes of like all the different things she's spotting. And I'm like, you don't have to pay attention to that, Mum. Like, that's just showing you what she's doing. She'll explain it all later.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to kind of worry that you missed something. She'll tell you about it. Don't worry.
I mean, that reminds me of, we've been watching Angel over the last, it's every once in a while, not very often, we'll throw an episode on. We're still in its first season, but Angel has very abrupt transitions. Whenever they change from one scene to another, it's like flash. It's like LA skyline, flash my flash, this, that, cars. It's like very, very manic. And it's the exact same kind of thing, but it's just for the scene transitions. And it's like every time we're just like, just stop with this. And I feel like it's just part, like, this is what they were doing at the time in TV. Like, they were just doing all kinds of cool stuff. They like had new software or something for the editing and stuff, which is like a cool thing to do. So that's all that.
Oh my god, the first series of Angel is my favorite because it had Doyle in it.
Yeah, well, we just got to the part where Doyle died, so unfortunately, spoiler alert.
And then the actor died in real life, so they could never bring him back.
Go ahead.
Have you seen all of the series?
Yeah.
I love the way he gets turned into a puppet.
Yes, that's a great one. That was awesome.
And like everyone keeps calling him adorable. They're like, "Oh, he's so," and he's like, "Don't." And his little furrowed puppet brow. Oh my god, it's so brilliant.
The one thing about Angel, and it's funny if you watch this, it happens all the time. Like, he operates most of the time in the daytime. Like, Angel walks around his office like he's not worried about the sunlight coming into the window and stuff like that. Is so weird to me how much they just kind of.
Because it's not direct sunlight.
I guess so, but I'm still worried. I would still be worried about it. I'm like, what if it reflects off of something? Right?
Yeah. The first episode, when you see Cordelia, that is one of my absolute, oh my god, there's so many great Cordelia moments in that show, but the moment where she's like, you invited me here to this huge mansion with big curtains and no, you're a vampire. And he's like, no, I'm not. It's like,
Immediately.
yes, you are. And she's so brilliant. And my favorite episode is the one where she moves into that beautiful apartment that has a ghost.
Yeah.
And, you know, towards the end, you know, the ghost is berating her and everything, all her stuff's flying around her. And she goes, I'm no sniffly cry Buffy. I'm a bitch. And she's like, you know, and where did she get the idea that Buffy was a crybaby? That's not fair. But yeah, and then she lives with Dennis. And like,
the coast.
he like moves her can of Coke and she's like, no, put that back.
Like he's her roommate after that point, right? It was the mother that was the problem. And after the mother's gone.
Because she killed Dennis and like his body was in the chimney breast, which was the thing that she loved, that Cordelia loved. And like they're trying to get her to move out and she's like, but it's rent controlled. It's such a brilliant episode.
That's a good one. All right. Anyway. All right. Well, thank you very much for talking. That was great.
Yeah, it was a good episode. I'm glad we got to talk about Angel. That's always a fun time.
Yeah. Well, maybe we should talk about it more. I can bring it up like it's good. I'm not watching it too often. It's like once every couple weeks, maybe. But whenever I come across a really good episode, I could bring it up.
Yeah, I watch like specific episodes because I want to watch my favorite moments again. Like there's an episode where Angel gives away Cordelia's clothes, and then he like buys her new clothes, and at the end, and she's just like, it's so adorable. Brilliant.
I'm just waiting for Lauren to show up. Lauren's my favorite character in Angel, and once they go to the alternate dimension to get him and then bring him back, it's awesome. I just love it. At that point, then what's her name shows up too? Freddie shows up at that. But yeah, and those are my favorite characters in the show is when those guys show up.
Yeah, and I like the episode where they all lose their memories, and like Wesley like goes doo, 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 and then they like stakes fly, and he's like. He's so funny, and I love the fact that he and Alison Hannigan are married in real life. It's just, you know, it's such a nice thing. So yeah, all right. Well, next week we will watch episode 10. I don't know what it's called, but yeah, we've only got 4 episodes to go.
5, 10, 11, 12,
12, 34, 5 episodes to go.
That's it.
Yeah, they're not going to be able to finish this plot off, and I'm very obsessed about it.
No, I don't think they're going to be able to wrap up what's happening with Kate and the spies. I think she's always going to be a spy, but we'll see.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah, I will see you next week then. This has been great.
Right.
You can end the live now.
Hey, see you later. Have a good night. All right.